this Thursday morning. All right, 9:35 is the time right now. Well, Nova Scotian Steve McNenly got involved with the Millers of New Waterford about, 2 years ago in their continuing search for the truth behind their son Clayton's death in 1990. McNenly's got a petition now online seeking support for their effort, and he's also written Justice Minister Mark Fury, urging him to sit down with the Millers. He writes he hopes the minister is a man of integrity and will give some serious thought to the facts that he has provided in his letter. And Steve McNenly joins me on the phone here this morning to tell us more about the case and his letter and his request to the Justice Minister. Steve, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Rick. It's nice to speak with you again.
Well, thank you for joining us here again this Thursday morning.
I want to thank you folks for paying attention to Clayton's case. You're one of the few that do.
Well, again, I think it's a fascinating story, and I think there's enough, questions out there to keep going until we get all of the answers. And are there new facts in this letter that you've given to the minister?
To tell you the truth, Rick, most of what's in that letter is facts that have been available for many years, which is one of my main problems with this case because after, you mentioned earlier in the intro there that it was approximately 2 years I've been with the Millers. Actually, it's coming up on 3. But it's 2 years, a little over 2 years since they finally acquired the RCMP files in Clayton's case. Initially, when they first were interested in acquiring the files back in the early 90s, they were told in writing from someone at the RCMP that they had to wait 20 years before applying to get those files. Since then, they've come to realize that that's completely false. However, as a result of having that communication back in the day, for 20 years they never tried to get Clayton's files because they assumed that they had been told the truth and they were unavailable for 20 years. Then when they began to try, after the 20-year period, to acquire them, after some substantial delays, what they were given was completely redacted files. By the way, Clayton's file is over 17,000 pages, the RCMP files. After that, they had to jump through a few more hoops, and then they got Ray Wagner involved. And in 2015, 25 years after Clayton's death, they were supplied with the RCMP file of over 17,000 pages. It's still heavily redacted, but not as heavily redacted as it was in the beginning.
Yeah, we've had a number of reviews on this, including the pathologist who came from, I believe, the States. We've had to believe at least 2, if not 3, reviews of this whole matter, and the most recent has been a review by the Serious Incident Response Team. And again, it says that as best as it can determine, that Clayton died of hypothermia and perhaps choked on his own vomit because of a night of drinking.
Yeah, there's a lot of perhapses in this case, and to put any faith whatsoever in the contents of the report released by CERT is absolutely ridiculous. That report is the most, if it wasn't for such a serious subject matter, that report would literally be laughable. Rick, there's hardly an individual's name given in that entire report. The way Mr. McDonald put that report together, almost all of the individuals involved are given a number. Person, female 1, female 2, female 3, male 1, male 2, male 3, etc.
Yep.
No one except Maureen Miller or myself could possibly sort through what he says in that report, given the fact that there are so few names provided, and be able to challenge him on what he's saying. And most of what he says needs to be challenged. Mr. McDonald provides no proof for any of what is supplied in his report. There is not one statement from anyone that he spoke with included, and that includes Dale McKinnon, who is the person with whom Clayton did his drinking that night and who found Clayton's body on Sunday. Mr. McDonald says that he went to Alberta and conducted an interview with Dale McKinnon, and so allegedly during that interview, for the first time in 25 years, Dale McKinnon had a recollection of seeing Clayton after they began to run from the police, and discussing with Clayton the fact that Clayton had lost his hat, and Clayton was going back for his hat, he says. Now, in at least 4 previous interviews, and inquiry testimony at the fatality inquiry in 1990, Dale McKinnon has always stated that he never saw Clayton from the moment he ran until he found his body. But somehow, after 25 years, when Mr. McDonald goes to Alberta and asks Dale specifically if he has any recollection of Clayton saying anything about his hat, allegedly this jogs, quote, this jogged his memory, and now he remembers after 25 years that they did have a conversation. Well, back in 1991, when the RCMP were allegedly investigating Clayton's case, Dale McKinnon was asked specifically by an RCMP officer if he had any recollection of Clayton saying anything about going back for his hat. And he specifically at that time told him, no, I do not recall that. And he mentioned the name of the person who it was who was the first to mention anything about Clayton losing his hat. Stuff like that is just this case is so filled with stuff like that, Rick. It's incredible. Anyway, my main point with this Dale McKinnon thing in his interview in Alberta, Mr. McDonald went to Alberta and supposedly interviewed Dale McKinnon, and supposedly Dale McKinnon gave him information that has never been heard in 25 years and is contrary to every information he's given when asked about that in the past. However, Mr. McDonald does not supply anybody with a copy of that interview, a transcript, which is what he prefers to send out to people as opposed to recordings. No audio recording, no video recording, no transcript. Now, it's my belief that if Mr. McDonald had gone to Alberta and conducted an interview with Dale McKinnon and been told that Dale McKinnon information of that importance, he would be providing a copy of that interview for the world to see, to hear, or to read, which he has not done.
942. I guess my question would be, why would everybody be involved in what is, I think you're suggesting, is a cover-up here?
Why are they involved in it?
Yeah. I mean, why the cover-up? If indeed that's what's happening here, why the cover-up?
Well, it's my belief, based on what and for a little bit of background, Rick.
I've only got a couple of minutes left here, Steve. So
people have to know why I'm speaking on behalf of the family, and it's because I've spent over 2 years going through everything that's available on Clayton's case, all the paperwork, which is now over 20,000 pages, and I can absolutely guarantee you 100% that there is no legitimate investigator who can look at what's in these files and say that there's nothing wrong with this case. I've put together 7 binders so far full of information. It's approximately 1,500 to 2,000 pages. They've all been highlighted and hand noted what the significance of the highlighted areas are if they're not apparent to the reader. And every bit of what's in there shows that Clayton's story is not what we've been told. And Ron McDonald's report, which some people have made the mistake of giving some legitimacy to, contains very, very little accurate information. And one of the particular things that's in there is Ron McDonald, as more than one occasion says, all the evidence proves that Clayton Miller was never present at the New Waterford police station on May 4th, 1990. He makes that claim on multiple occasions in his report and provides none. When he says all evidence proves that Clayton Miller was never present at the New Waterford police station, the only evidence that would prove that would be a videotape of the area that covers the entire time and Clayton Miller does not appear, or absolutely unmistakable evidence that he was somewhere else the entire time. He cannot make claims like all the evidence proves that Clayton Miller was never present at the New Waterford police station May 4th, 1990, with no evidence to back it up.
Have you heard from the minister yet after your letter to him?
I haven't heard from the minister, and I'm pretty sure that if the Millers had heard, they would have let me know about that.
Do you expect that you'll hear a response from the minister at all?
You know, Rick, I've never met the minister. I have no idea anything about him. And activities such as what I'm involved in now are not my usual thing. I've never dealt with political people. I've never dealt with law people. I'm just a retired carpenter who has time on my hands and got interested in Clayton's case to the point where I know enough now about it that I'll be with the Millers until the end.
Well, and you've got an online petition. Where can people go to? Petition.org?
It's change.org.
Or change.org, rather, sorry.
The title of the petition is Nova Scotia Justice Minister, please meet with the family of Clayton Miller for at least 1 hour.
All right. Well, we'll wait to see if the minister does indeed respond, Steve. If you hear from him, I'd appreciate a call, and we'll get you back on.
Rick, I definitely appreciate the fact that you people can pay attention to Clayton's case, as I said earlier. Another thing I'd like to point out for your listeners is that if they go to the petition, we've been posting information from the files there as well that the public has never seen. Last night I put one up about what's going on with Dr. Bose and the fact that all the physical evidence created at Clayton's re-autopsy by Dr. Butt in 1993 is unaccounted for. The slides and the blocks, he has none of those. He's denying us access to the blocks that we've got a transfer form that says that in September of 2014, tissue blocks from samples of Clayton's tissue were sent from the Cape Breton Regional Hospital in response to a request from Dr. Bose to his office when he began his investigation into Clayton's case. According to that transfer form, 18 blocks of Clayton's tissue were sent to Dr. Bowe's office in September 2014. That form also states that the blocks are to be returned within 6 weeks, within a report accompanying them of what work was done while the blocks were away.
Well, I do have to run, Steve, because we're out of time here. But
now they say that those blocks don't belong to Clayton Miller. There's apparently, and yet another coincidence in Clayton's case, there was a numbers mix-up, and the top person in the lab in Sydney sent the wrong samples to the number one ultimate legal authority in Nova Scotia Medical, which is Dr. Bowe's office, in response to a request for samples in a 25-year-old case, and now they're saying that they gave them the wrong samples. However, 3 years later, those samples are still in Dr. Bowe's custody, have never been returned to the Cape Breton Regional Hospital. Why 3 years later is he holding on to samples of somebody else that were mistakenly sent to him if they're not Clayton samples?
Good points. Good points. I'll be interested, and I do have to run, Steve. I have to go, and it'll be interesting to see if the minister responds and what he says in that response. And I'm sure we'll talk again, sir. Appreciate your time.
I definitely appreciate your chance to speak on behalf of the family, Rick, and I want for people out there listening to realize that what they're being told in the public is not factual.
I appreciate your time. Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, but take care. Steve McNenly is his name, and again, hoping to get to the bottom, along with the Millers, Maureen and Gervais, about the truth of their son's death back in 1990. 9:46 is the time. Back with more right after this.